Welcome back to Sahara TV. Salman Rushdie said that literature is where I go to explore the highest and the lowest places in human society and the human spirit, where I go to find not absolute truth, but truths of the tale, of the imagination and the heart. Today on the roundtable, we've brought together two distinguished Nigerian artists. We have writer Chika Unigwe and Victor Ehikhamenor. Chika Unigwe is an award-winning Nigerian writer who is based in Belgium. Her novel, The Black Sister Street, won the 2012 Nigeria Prize for Literature. Her latest work is The Night Dancer. Mr. Ehikhamenor is an award-winning visual artist, writer, and photographer. His newest work is called Excuse Me. Chika, welcome to Sahara TV.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay. Victor, welcome to Sahara TV.
Thank you, Rudolph.
Victor, excuse me, but let me start with Chika. Before we go into literature, let me start by talking about the cousin, which is journalism. And I know that two of you were involved in it at some point in your career. So Chika, let me start with you. The Minister of Information, Mr. Labaran Maku, said recently that the Nigerian media is so negative about the country that they are not interested in believing in progress being made in the country. They are running down the country, quote unquote. Now, I know you wrote a column for Daily Times up till some weeks ago. Were you running down Nigeria in your columns?
No, I mean, I think what good media does is to help in the quest for transparent and accountable government. And if the Minister for Information thinks that that Nigerian media is running down the government, then maybe the Minister for Information should look at exactly what the media is doing. If the government does not like what it sees in the mirror, maybe it's time that the government changes. And I mean, the media isn't a tourism brochure. What the media does is not to brush up a country and to highlight or exaggerate its good points and hide all its bad points. What good media does is to show the country exactly how it is.
Victor, you were a director at Nest newspaper and you ran the Daily Times for a while. Why is the government of President Jonathan blaming the media for its failures?
It was quite surprise. The statement was quite a surprise. I had to go back and read it again to be sure it was not misquoted out of context. I think what Nigerian journalists are doing, they are not fiction writers. They are going to the society and writing what is happening. And for the Minister of Information to say that they are running down the country means is kind of accusing them that they are lying. And if that is the case, why does the government keep saying that they are fighting corruption? You know, if they keep saying they are fighting corruption, how can you be fighting what is non-existent? It's what they are fighting that the journalists are reporting. So in that case, it's kind of contradictory statement because the government is saying that they are fighting corruption, yet you are accusing the journalists of reporting what you say you are fighting. It doesn't make sense to me, really, you know. So I think that is where the statement should be analyzed from that perspective, you know.
Chika, how much of this anger from the government or Maku has something to do with the new world where the establishment media has no control of information anymore, whether the distribution or the gathering of this information? How much of it is that lack of control? The fact that citizen reporters, ordinary people can pick up information and send it across the web and the government has no control?
I suspect it has a lot to do with the fact that the government cannot whitewash its lies or whitewash the truth anymore, because a lot more people have access to the news, and a lot more people have access to investigative journalism. And I'm very happy that many more people are doing it. There are lots of citizen reporters, and I think that the fact that the government cannot control what is out there anymore must be threatening, and I suspect that has a lot to do with this anger, quote unquote.
Yeah, okay, Victor, if you were an editor of a paper today and you want to respond to Mr. Maku, what will you say in your editorial? What will you say?
There's, I mean, like, I don't think there is really much to say there, because I think one thing I can say for the Minister of Information is that I think it comes with his own job description that they have to be able to, like, paint the government in good light, you understand? But, you know, we'll be able to, I'll tell my guys to...
So now let's go to, Chika, I'm coming to you now. Last week you were featured at TED conference in London. Can you briefly tell us what is TED and what is the goal and what did you say there?
Just a point of correction. I wasn't featured. I'm one of the organizers of the TEDx Houston in London.
Okay.
And our focus is Africa. And our motto this year is challenging conventional wisdom. And so we brought in 15 speakers from across the African continent to talk about or to present the continent, to present Africa in a different light, and talk about the things that that matter to them. And we had Kobam Sasuko, for example, blind musician and director from Nigeria. We had Chimamanda Adichie. We had Jeb Chumba from Kenya. We had Albi Sachs from South Africa. We had Frank Njenge, who is a psychiatrist from Kenya. And a lot of people who came to TEDx sent in testimonials saying how much they were inspired by listening to our speakers. And so the whole goal of TEDx is to inspire, you know, Africans, and by having them listen to other people who are either Africans or who have dealt with Africa, and to present the continent in a totally different light.
Okay, that's good. Victor, she talked about conventional wisdom, and I thought about this your new book, Excuse Me. The conventional wisdom is really to interrupt people without saying, excuse me. Why are you bringing us back?
Well, that is the whole point. I wanted to draw people's attention to it. I don't know if you know the history of the content of Excuse Me. They were my columns while I was the creative director at Next. So I was writing the column every Friday, and Excuse Me was to draw people's attention and kind of like write the column in a creative nonfiction format, you know, commenting on the socio-political issues of the country and sometimes personal stuff that I needed to talk about, you know. So that was where the title came from, is really to kind of draw your attention, you know, whatever you're doing, just pay a little bit of attention to read what I have to say.
Okay. Chika, last month your novel, The Black Street Sister, won the Nigerian Literature Prize. The prize money is a check of $100,000. What has changed since then for you?
I mean, on Black Sister Street won the 2012 Nigerian Prize for Literature, like you said. What has changed for me as a writer? Nothing. I mean, I still wake up, I still try to write. But what a prize does to a writer like myself, who is not particularly a confident writer, I struggle a lot with self-confidence when I'm writing, is that it validates what I do to a certain degree. It tells me that maybe I'm doing something right. Maybe I shouldn't have as many, or I shouldn't doubt myself as much as I do. But yeah, I mean, I still wake up, I still write.
Did you notice any kind of a change in the way people perceive you and your work?
Well, I've been interviewed a lot more, both here and in Nigeria. I mean, I've had a lot more attention from Belgian journalists and from Nigerian journalists, and I mean, publicity is good for any writer, so I'm pretty grateful for that.
Have you gone home to receive the prize?
No, the award ceremony is in January.
In January. Okay. Victor, you are a photographer, you're a visual artist, you're a poet, you're a journalist. You even got an MFA in fiction from University of Maryland. Why don't you, how do you do all these things? And why don't you leave some of these things for some other folks?
it's out there. I usually give an example of a biblical story of where if you are given a talent, you can't bury it, you know. So I guess I can afford to do all of them and be able to juggle them and be able to do a decent work with them. So I don't see any reason why I shouldn't do it, but it's out there for other people to do, you know. So I kind of stagger them in between time. When I'm painting, I'm not probably writing. When I'm writing, I'm not photographing, you know. So I have a lot of time to do that. It also keeps me out of trouble, and I'm a little bit restless, you know. So doing all of the things that I can do keeps me out of trouble, you know. So I feel it's good for me.
All right. Chika, a reviewer of your latest novel, The Night Dancer, said that you are one of the female voices in African literature that bring out submerged stories about African women. Is that the plan?
I mean, I don't write with a plan in mind. I write stories that haunt me. And I mean, I just submitted a manuscript to my agent, and the manuscript deals with a story that's been haunting me for the past 20 years. And it's a story I really, really wanted to write. And Night Dancer also, I mean, I had the story in my head for a very long time. So I just write stories that haunt me, stories I want to tell. I'm not a very structured person, and I never sit down and think, okay, I'm going to write about this. I'm going to bring out all these hidden stories. I just write what torments me, what won't let me go, or what won't let go of me, basically.
In The Night Dancer, Ma inherited her mother's bad name, and her mother, Ezi, won't discuss her past. It sounds like the story of Nigeria. There's a generation that gave Nigeria a bad name, and they are not willing to discuss the past of Nigeria. Is this something like that you're trying to do, or am I overreading what is in
I mean, I think the good thing about novels or fiction is that every reader comes to it, you know, from his own perspective, and you can't really invalidate any reader's perspective because they're coming to it, you know, with their own experiences and all of that. What I just wanted to do was to tell a story. I just wanted to tell a story of a woman trying to survive in a man's world and how that affects her relationship with her daughter and how her daughter has to deal with it.
Victor, your book, excuse me, is making waves in Nigeria. Were you surprised at the reception the book is been receiving? And was it because of you, Victor, the poet, the photographer, the editor, the publisher, or is there a revival of reading in Nigeria?
You never can anticipate how a book. For me, I'm kind of surprised at the way it's making and the way people are buying them, and you know, they're telling me that they can't find them in the stores and just hit the stores in less than a week. You know, I really can't. I don't know what to attribute it to. But I think when I'm doing anything, I pay attention to what I'm doing, and also I wanted to make sure that people can attest to the fact that things can work in this country, really in Nigeria, if special attention is paid to what is being done and if the actual process is being followed through. You know, I don't think it's because it's Victor the poet or it's Victor the artist. You know, I guess people buy it and they read it and they find what they are looking for because I was talking to them. It's a common experience that we have all shared that I kind of like put down in the book, you know. So I'm glad about that, you know. So, but I can't really tell you why the book is doing well or making waves in Nigeria at the moment, you know. So it's a pleasant surprise for me.
Chika, I assume that you have a publisher in Nigeria. How is your experience with publishing in Nigeria been, you know, with our publishers and your books?
I mean, I've only had one book published in Nigeria, and I'm in the process of signing a contract for my latest book with a publisher in Nigeria. And I mean, so far it's been pretty professional. I mean, I don't have any complaints, not yet anyway.
Yeah. So, Victor, a lot of our viewers who are writers will be interested in knowing the process you went through and your publisher. How is it? What is the experience like? Do you think that publishing is coming back in Nigeria based on your experience?
Well, it's not. It has always been there, though. I would say that. Nigeria has a long history of publishing. I don't see any reason why a country of 170 million people are not reading if it's properly marketed. One thing is if you have to market it, even in America or in UK, let's just say in the Western world, there are processes. If you don't market whatever they are publishing there, people are not going to read it. I've had a good experience with my publishers. I mean, we have worked together very closely, and they are young publishers. And we have listened to each other. I brought in my experience from the publishing world, not book publishing, but newspaper publishing, and also from having exhibitions and everything. There are certain things you can borrow from that aspect, from that experience, and those are working. So I always tell people that you have to really pay attention to these things. It went through a rigorous editing because I wouldn't let my work go out there without a serious editing as much as possible. It should go through the same. I wasn't in a hurry to go to the market. The manuscript was pretty much ready as far back as 2010 when one of the Nigerian publishers that I offered it to before turned it down. So when I saw what Parisha was doing and they are serious with what they are doing, then, I offered it to them and they accepted it and we started working on it together. So as a writer, you have to learn to work with your publishers. You have to learn to work with editors. You should not just hurry to the press. Everything has its process, and you have to go through those processes for it to work.
So, Chika, what do you think about the reading culture in Nigeria? Do you feel that it is where it should be, or that people in the 80s read more than people today?
Geez, I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't even know how to calculate that because I haven't got the statistics. What I do know is that in the past few years, since I've been coming back to Nigeria regularly, I've seen a renaissance or an explosion, basically, in creative writing workshops, in readings. When I was at university in Nigeria, we had very little of those going on. And in the past 2 years, I've been back a few times already to Nigeria to help run creative writing workshops. I know Lola Shoneyi runs a reading thing in Abuja, in Fusion, where every month, once a month, she invites a writer to come and give a reading and to talk. And I know there are other people doing the same thing in Lagos. The Abuja Literary Society seems to be pretty active. The Kaduna one seems to be pretty active. In Port Harcourt, you have the Garden City Festival every year. So I don't know where it should be. I mean, I wouldn't even know how to start calculating that. But I do know that where it is now is a good place to be, or to start.
Let me ask you also, Chika, because you were supposed to be one of our guests when we had the Achebe discussion on Achebe's book, the memoir, There Was a Country.
Yeah.
So my question is this: E.M. Foster said that great literature transforms the man who reads it towards the condition of the man who wrote it. Did Achebe achieve that in There Was a Country?
I mean, I can't answer for everybody. I can only talk for myself because reading is a very personal experience. And like I said, you come to a book from your own perspective and with your own experiences. And we can all read the same book and come out of that book with totally different experiences because we are all different people. For me, reading that book, I could feel Achebe's anger. I could feel Achebe's pain. Because first and foremost, There Was a Country doesn't claim to be everybody's experience of Biafra or everybody's experience of Nigeria. Achebe does say it's a personal memoir, and so it is Achebe's own story. And it took me to where Achebe was while he was writing the book.
Were you surprised by the reaction the book received?
I mean, it received. I don't think so. I think I anticipated that. Any book that is personal, that is subjective, that tells your own personal story, especially if it's a story that has to do with something that a whole, that a country, in this case, an entire country experienced, is bound to generate that sort of controversy. Even if Achebe had said, nobody suffered in the war, it was all, it was a very fair war, he would still have had people who were against it, he would still have had people who would be against him, because it's an opinion. There's an actually proverb that says that opinions are like buttocks and everybody has got a pair. And nobody is going to agree on one, is going to agree with you. Not everybody is going to agree with your own opinion. So I expected that. Achebe said down his opinion in the book. And if it hadn't generated that sort of controversy, I would have been surprised.
Victor, in your drawings and paintings, you use African motif and religious cosmology. I'm wondering, do you feel like you are trying to preserve something that is going away? Do you think that African ways of life can survive this onslaught of the Western ways?
I feed off of memory a lot. One thing I can tell you is that what is not preserved will definitely be eroded. And we have to find a way to preserve our culture. I can't say that I'm really, I'm preserving that. It's just my style. It's what I grew up to experience. It was part of me when I was growing up. But I can tell you that a whole lot of things that I grew up to experience are going very fast because every now and then, since I returned back to Nigeria, I keep going back to the village to even try and photograph some things that I grew up knowing, women coming out to paint shrine walls or even their walls, their living quarters, and decorate them, where I feed off of where I got my symbols and all that. From all that now is all going away. You don't see anybody doing that anymore. And whereas we travel out of this country to go and visit historical sites of other countries and all that, our own are dilapidating and nobody's paying attention to them. It's a sad thing, So as much as I can paint, as much as I can get from that memory, as much as I can retain of it for other people to see, I do that. I paint from memory, I paint from what I experienced. But a whole lot of things that influence my paintings are already gone pretty much right now. So we need to preserve some more. We need to do something about our historical sites, about our culture that we have, the good ones, the good aspect of our culture must not be eroded. We can't allow somebody else to preach something to us that if you are removing African culture, what are you replacing it with? So you are removing the foundation of the house and you are building straw houses, so they are going to fall apart definitely. So that's where I'm coming from, So we need to leave our foundations and find a way to renovate on top of that. Otherwise, we are going to just be floating and we will be neither back nor buried, So that's where we are at the moment.
Yeah, Chika, it's been said that literature introduces us to new worlds of experiences to help us grow and evolve. Does literature still do that, or has it been taken over by Google?
Literature is vast, and it's expansive, and I don't think literature's purpose ever goes away. So that purpose still remains. People who read still get taken to other worlds and still increase their knowledge. And what Google does is to supplement that knowledge. And depending on what you read or what you use Google for, it can also expand to include Google.
So, Victor, you've been back for some time now. Have you been surprised by the transformation in Nigeria since you were gone, when you were in America? What has been the experiences based both on the expectations and the reality?
Well, it has been good so far. Otherwise, I would probably not still be in Nigeria after I came back in 2008. It's been great. Where in Lagos, where I live, is pretty much as cosmopolitan as it can be, like any other place in the world, except for sometimes for the infrastructures and things that are not kind of working, you know. But having said that, it's a vibrant city. I can't say that for the villages, though, or the outskirts and things like that. Things seem to be going backward, you know, even with the way things are being executed, you know, it's still the same old story. You read old books, read old newspapers about power supply, about roads, it's still the same thing, you know. So, and it's really painful because when I was in primary school, the projects that governors were doing there were to come and paint primary schools and supply, blackboard. If that's what we are still doing in the interiors at this moment, when the world is already moving to laptops and everything, and we have enough money to do stuff like that, then it's a painful thing. It's a very sad thing because those who call our leaders are really not on top of their game as we speak. It's not good. But the private industry is doing very well. You know, the banks are doing very well. Communication companies, as due to the infrastructure on ground, they are trying as best as they can. I mean, we are speaking on the phone right now, you know, and I'm seeing Chika on Skype. Before I left Nigeria, I couldn't do that. I agree that the technology was not even in the world then, but now we can do that. You know, I can Skype from anywhere I am. If I go to my village, I can call you in New York from there. We have experienced some growth, you know, so it's encouraging. It's just for us to do a little bit more. If you're a contractor, if you are somebody that is given something to take care of, you have to pay attention to it and know that you are building it for yourself and for the future generation. We can't just afford to take things lightly because they have serious effects later on lives, you know. So we are progressing in some places, and in some other areas we are progressing very, very fast. And if nothing is done about it, there will be serious issues, serious problems.
All right, we have a few minutes left. Chika, let me ask you, because some young writers will be looking up to you, and what will you say to them in terms of what it takes to be successful, to really stay in the game?
Perseverance. I mean, writing is a very difficult business to be in. Difficult in the sense that even when you know that something is wrong with the work you've written, it's not always easy to see what it is that is wrong. You know, it's not like I don't know, because sometimes I look at what I've written, I know that something is wrong. I can't put a finger on that thing that is wrong, and it needs perseverance to fix it. And you need to develop hard skin. You need to know that you can't take criticism of your work personally. When someone criticizes your work, they're not criticizing you, the person. You have to cultivate a network of writer friends, people who also write, people whose judgment you trust, people who will read for you and you can read for them and give each other objective criticism back. You have to, I think that the most important thing is to persevere. You have to read extensively. I always find it suspicious when some writers say that they don't read at all. I don't know how you can be a writer and not read. So you have to read extensively. You have to write, keep at it. If you're passionate about it, you will continue to write and send out your works. Don't be scared of rejection. Rejection is part of the course for writers. You get lots of rejections, but you also you get lots of rejections, but the happiness that comes from getting accepted or getting one accepted wipes off the sorrow of rejection.
Victor, you've been abroad and you are now home. Do you think writers abroad, they have advantages over those at home?
Well, you have to break that down a little bit. I don't think there is. I mean, you have access to, when you're abroad, you have access to what we kind of make you want to write more and all that. When you want to write, maybe you have the light and the opportunity to wake up in the middle of the night and go to your laptop and write. Whereas here, you can't really do that because you might want to write, but there's no light. You can't do anything about it. So you have to kind of navigate that craziness. As far as like, there is, I mean, good both ways. There are some things I like better where I was in America, and there are some I like better while I'm here. The stories are really here, though, so you live with them. I don't know if that is good, because sometimes you have to distance yourself from certain things before you can write about them. So, and if you see them from afar, you can write about them better, So, but as far as that is concerned, the world is becoming very closed up right now, So there is really no advantage or anything. Some of the guys that are based locally here are doing very well, They are getting agents, they are getting published by big publishing houses abroad. If you do your work well, if you do your homework really well and be dedicated to what you're doing, it doesn't matter where you live. You can be on top of your game.
Chika, the night dancer took place in Africa, in Nigeria, and you've been abroad for a while. How do you get the right tone, the right scenes back in place? Do you go home? How much research is involved?
I grew up in Nigeria, so all I have to do is dig back into my memories. But I do come back often. I was in Nigeria twice last year. Unlike the novel, the manuscripts I just submitted to my agent, which takes place in the 18th century, and for which I had to do a lot of research for. For Night Dancer, I basically just had to dig deep into my memories, and it's set in when is it? I think from the 60s to 2001, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's from the 60s, yeah.
Yeah, and some of what is there is public knowledge anyway, and the rest, is just basically my memories of Nigeria. But yeah, I do come back to Nigeria often. My heart is still in Nigeria. And I don't think it would ever go away from Nigeria. So they say you can take the girl out of the country, but you can't take the country out of the girl.
Let me ask you before you go, you were aware of the controversy around the prize, Nigerian prize for literature, including whether they should allow foreign-based writers to participate in that competition, which they changed. And also there's a new one where people are saying that giving one writer, $100,000 may not do good for literature, that there are better ways that money could have been used instead of giving the money to one particular writer. What do you think about all these things?
I've read some of the opinions, and I remember getting involved in one, quote unquote, argument where someone said you shouldn't give one writer 100,000 because it is too much. And I asked, well, what is too much? Who determines what is too much? And I did not think that $100,000 is the amount set in stone that the NLNG has to spend on literature. I think that what people should be fighting for is that other institutions, if the NLNG wants to do it, fine, should expand, what they do in addition to the $100,000. $100,000 is an advance that one person gets for a book, for example. If it buys you time to write your book, to write your next work, if it buys you the freedom and space to write, why not? For a writer who lives in Nigeria, for example, $100,000 can do a lot. If you wanted to take out some time off work to write, and $100,000 too is somebody's yearly salary. It's not for a writer who gets that money, from the NLNG prize. It's just a one-time windfall. For some people, it's a yearly windfall. It's their yearly salary, and I don't like to talk in terms of it's too much or it's too. Some people were saying, well, give a writer $10,000. That's enough. Who determines what's enough for one writer? Who determines what is too much? I think the argument should be that if the NLNG wanted to work on I'm looking for the right term now. If the NLNG wanted to work on improving literature in Nigeria, they could do other things in addition to the $100,000.
Okay.
Much more constructive argument. They spend them $700,000 in total for the prize. So 600,000 on logistics and the rest. And so the 100,000 is just 1/7 of their total budget. And so the argument should be, I do not think that it's right that the argument should be that they should carve into that $100,000 that they've set out to give to the winner and carve out of it to do other things. I think they could do other things if they wished to, in addition to that. And other institutions could also, do. I mean, Julius Berger is running writing creative writing workshops, if I'm not mistaken. Nigerian Breweries sponsors the Farafina workshop in Lagos. Fidelity Bank sponsors the workshop in I think it's Abuja or Kaduna, I'm not sure where now. And so, other institutions could get involved if they wanted to. I think that the fixation on this amount is not a very constructive way to proceed, and it's not a very constructive way to argue. And I find that fixation, the focus on that $100,000, this one amount, I find it very strange.
Okay. Victor, what are you looking, when you look at the publishing industry in Nigeria now, what are you looking up to? What are you hoping to see that will enhance things for writers and also for readers? For instance, I would like to know, are there bookstores where people could buy your book in a place like Ondo State or in the northern states? What is it? What are you looking forward to?
Distribution in Nigeria is still quite a problem, which I think is one of the biggest fundamental problems that is hindering publishing growth in the country, because you don't have, like I tell people, the way you know that your book is doing well is when you see it being sold by hawkers, on the streets of Lagos, because the country is already there. But if we have a decent distribution channels, books will do very well in Nigeria, but we don't right now. So the publishers have made every effort to make sure that they distribute them across the country through other ways, not your normal way of, figure out some major cities and to distribute them to. For people that are in other states, they might not get the books right away, because this where they are concentrating on right now is Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt. And the other thing too is that some bookstores in Ondo might not even want to carry it if they feel they cannot sell it in Ondo. You understand, But we hope that it is doing very well, and is doing well enough for other places to want to carry the book. If it's doing well, they figure out a way to get it to the hinterlands. What am I looking forward to in Nigerian publishing is for us to be able to have a vibrant home publishing that will help other writers, other young writers that are there's a pool of talent in this place I can't even begin to tell you. But breaking into that publishing world, what we call the Western publishing world, can be very hard. So if we have a vibrant publishing industry in Nigeria, I don't think people will really talents will go wasted. People will hide their manuscripts and all that. There are great manuscripts out there, so that people can begin to publish them and people can begin to read again. And going back to the question you asked earlier, Nigerians are reading, they are reading a whole lot, but we have to be able to serve it to them. We have to be able to give it to them. If you give people what they want, they will take it from you. So I look forward to a day where we have a huge publishing house in Nigeria that is doing the right thing. They have a decent marketing department. They have a decent distribution department. They have a decent editorial department. You can't joke with that, So at the moment, those are kind of like a whole lot of them are still taking baby steps in those areas, So I can't joke with those things at all. We have to do things the right way.
Okay. Chika, final words. Any final words?
Yes, just something that kept going through my head while Victor was talking. An addendum to my response to you on the NLNG question and the $100,000 on whether it's too much or too whatever for one writer to take home. And I was just thinking, I do not think that any writer in Nigeria, not even Shoyinka, gets as much money for a gig as, say, Tufe Sidibia or P Square, gets in one night of performance, you know, and I think the way we treat our writers shows how much we think of our writers, how much we think of our writers, yeah, basically. And so if it's not too much to pay somebody who wins a reality show contest in Nigeria, how many millions of naira, but it's too much to give one writer $100,000, then we have to start thinking of where we place our writers.
That's interesting. Now we have to leave it at that. Thank you so much, Chika, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you, Victor, too, for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
As we go along, we'll continue the discussion. I hope to start a series on literature probably once every 2 or 3 months. Thank you all, and we'll be right back with your Skype calls.